Hey guys, tonight we unravel a story that might make you double-check who's sleeping next to you. Picture this. You're standing in the kitchen, sunlight spilling through the blinds, making little rainbows in the steam from 2 mugs of coffee. The house is quiet, your fiancé's humming from the bathroom, and everything feels like one of those slow good mornings, until she walks out and says it. She wants a break. Days. Her voice is careful, eyes downcast. It's not a fight, it's not emotional, it's clinical, like someone adjusting the settings on a washing machine. She says she just needs time to figure things out, which, let's be honest, is always code for something more. You stare at her, still holding your coffee, but it suddenly tastes wrong. You ask one question. Is there someone else? She hesitates for just half a second too long. That pause isn't just awkward. It's an answer. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing how far this sleepy little storytime travels. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Grellas. You don't scream. You don't cry. You just nod. But inside, your organs start packing their bags. It's like your body already knows. You're about to lose a lot more than an engagement. By the way, did you know Napoleon's marriage to Josephine was riddled with affairs, yet he still carried her portrait into battle? Historians still argue whether he ever truly moved on. And just like that, your morning, your future, fractures in slow motion. You try to play it cool. You tell her you understand, even though your insides feel like someone lit a match and dropped it into your ribcage. She says she just needs space, a few weeks, maybe, to sort through her feelings. You offer her that space, thinking maybe you'll come out the other side stronger. But let's not kid ourselves. You already feel the floor shifting. 2 days later, you find out what space really means. Your mutual friend Tasha, the one who posts everything on social media except her dentist visits, shares a story. There they are, your fiancé and her ex, laughing. Not across a table with a candle between them like some rom-com cliché. No, this is worse. It's broad daylight, they're hiking, sweaty and smiling like they just beat cancer with kale. You feel like an idiot. You remember what your grandmother used to say. When someone shows you their true face, stop trying to repaint it. And yet you still want to believe it's nothing. By the way, in ancient Rome, breakups weren't just personal. They were public. A man could denounce his wife at the forum. Messy? Absolutely. But honest? Well, historians still argue whether public shame was better than private deceit. You stew for a couple more days. You reread old texts. Listen to voicemails. Watch that one vacation video where she's laughing so hard she snorts. And then, you make your decision. You won't wait for her to come back. You're not just ending the engagement. You're about to erase every trace of this relationship like it's a typo in someone else's diary. And if anyone asks why, you'll simply say, she went exploring, so did I. You start with the house. Not emotionally, logistically. She moved in 6 months ago, have her name on everything. But the deed? That's yours. Always was. So you call the agent who once said the market was hotter than a Roman bathhouse. Within a week, you've got an open house scheduled and a quiet buyer sniffing around. You leave out the part where your fiancé is on a break. You leave out the part where she might come back, expecting brunch plans and a home with matching towels. This isn't revenge. This is release. You sleep in the guest room now. Her perfume still haunts the master like a stubborn ghost that doesn't know she's been evicted. Every drawer you open holds something of hers. A bobby pin, a half-used lip balm, a note she once stuck in your lunchbox. You gather it all into a box labeled, etc. The most respectful lie you'll tell yourself. Oh, and in medieval Iceland, divorce was as simple as announcing it at the front door with witnesses. Just shout it 3 times and boom. You're single. Clean. Quick. History never promised closure, but it sure offered convenience. She doesn't know about the sale yet. You figure that's a bridge to burn gently. Or maybe you'll just let her come back to an empty driveway and a forwarding address. There's something poetic about that. The kind of thing ancient poets would have written in blood on cave walls if they had escrow. Historians still argue whether disappearing is cowardice or brilliance. But tonight? You don't care. You're printing out the papers, packing up the walls, and telling your reflection in the mirror, "We're done here." And for once, your reflection doesn't argue back. The day she texts you is the day you ship the last box. Thinking of you. Can we talk soon? The goal of it hums through your bones like a forgotten song on a broken jukebox. You don't answer. Not out of cruelty, but because there's nothing left to say. The couch you once curled up on? Sold. The record player you both swore you'd use more? Gone to a hipster named Kyle, who overpronounced vinyl. Your realtor calls, closing in 2 weeks. You nod, even though she can't see you, and walk through the kitchen one last time. There's a faded post. It's still stuck to the fridge that says, "Buy lemons." You leave it there. Some archaeologist might find it and wonder what it meant. In ancient Rome, a woman could divorce her husband by simply taking her dowry and walking away. No grand trial, no begging for closure. Just a quiet exodus. That post-it note? That's your dowry. It's proof this life existed, briefly. You rent a storage unit 2 towns over. It smells like dust and possibilities. You stuck your past inside it, box by box, like a pharaoh sealing up his tomb. Except your cat is alive and pissed. Scholars still debate whether humans are wired for closure, or if we've just romanticized finality. Maybe it's neither. Maybe it's just a primitive craving to shut the door without looking back, which is exactly what you do. That night, you sleep on an air mattress next to a half-packed suitcase. It's cold. Quiet. But the silence doesn't bite like it used to. It just wraps around you, soft and neutral. The kind of quiet that says, "Something's coming. Just wait." And for the first time in months, you do. You choose Denver. Not because it calls to you in a dream or anything dramatic like that. It's just far enough. Big enough to disappear in. Small enough that your bank account won't break on day 3. You drive there in your decade-old Toyota, which rattles when it's nervous. Kind of like you. Somewhere along Route 70, as the sun spills over the windshield like a golden syrup, you catch yourself smiling. Not at anything in particular. Just the absurdity of being completely untethered. Like a medieval monk burning his own manuscripts and heading into the mountains to start a new theology. The ancient Stoics believed freedom came from losing everything you thought you needed. Historians still argue whether that's wisdom or just coping with poverty in a toga. You rent a furnished studio above a vegan bakery. Every morning it smells like overachieving almonds and moral superiority. Your landlord is a retired art teacher who insists her cat reads energy. The cat hates you. Of course it does. You unpack only what matters. Your laptop, a French press, a single photo of your dad fishing in a lake that doesn't exist anymore. You buy a used bike, and pretend you're going to be one of those people who bikes everywhere. The chain snaps on day 2, and now it leans against your wall like a failed promise. One night, as you scroll through old texts you swore you'd delete, her name pops up again. This time, no message. Just a heart reaction to something you posted 6 months ago. A digital ghost knocking gently at the door. Mat Paba, you turn off your phone. You're not haunted. Not anymore. Weeks blur like brush strokes on a Monet. Indistinct but somehow beautiful from a distance. You fall into a rhythm, early morning walks around Washington Park, freelance gigs that mostly involve fixing typos for tech bros, and long evenings spent pretending chamomile tea is enough to replace whiskey. And then one day you hear her voice again. Not in your head. This isn't that kind of story, but on a voicemail. Apparently she didn't know how to say any of it before. And now she just needs clarity. It's the verbal equivalent of dropping a match into a puddle of gasoline and pretending to be surprised when it ignites. Back in ancient Babylon, people believed dreams carried messages from the gods. Historians still argue whether that was a spiritual insight or just leftover goat stew messing with sleep cycles. Either way, that night you dream of her standing in your old kitchen, opening drawers like she's looking for her past. The next morning, you delete the voicemail. Then, for reasons that even you can't explain, you visit a local historical museum. It's quiet and smells like dust and forgotten paper. You learn about Margaret Molly Brown, Denver's own unsinkable legend, survivor of the Titanic. She kept going, even when everything said she shouldn't. A tour guide casually mentions that Molly was known for throwing lavish parties to prove she hadn't been broken. You chuckle. That sounds familiar. Only your ex threw emotional parties and you were always the main course. Back home, you write a letter to her. You don't send it. Instead, you rip it up, one line at a time, until it's confetti in your trash can. A celebration of letting go. In miniature. You start seeing signs, not cosmic ones. More like the kind printed on cafe chalkboards or old man bumper stickers. Today is a good day to start again. You survived 100% of your worst days. Even the coffee shop receipt tells you, you're doing great. It's as if the universe has gone full motivational Pinterest board, but hey, maybe you need it. Because today, while standing in the slowest checkout line imaginable, you see someone who looks exactly like her. Same jacket. Same messy bun. You freeze. It's not her. But the tremor in your spine says you weren't ready. Not really. During the Roman Empire, soldiers returning from war were given a triumph, a lavish parade, golden laurels, cheering crowds. But a slave would whisper into the general's ear, "Memento mori." Remember, you are mortal. Historians still argue whether that was humility or ancient HR protocol. You wonder what your own triumph would look like. Maybe it's just this. Surviving the moment without breaking. You buy your groceries. Almond milk, granola, bananas, and step back into the cold with your head held slightly higher. That evening, you pull out a dusty travel guide from your moving boxes. You'd once bookmarked a page about a cabin in northern Maine, secluded, quiet, near a frozen lake. At the time, it was a honeymoon fantasy. Now it feels like a second act. Did you know that Finnish people have a word, sisu, which roughly translates to grit in the face of hopeless odds? There's no perfect English equivalent. But that's what this moment is. You, standing in your too quiet kitchen, sipping cheap wine from a mug that says no regrets, planning an escape not from pain, but toward peace. And for once peace doesn't sound boring, it sounds like something you've earned. You drive north. No fanfare, no playlist, just the hum of your engine and the occasional, "Are we there yet?" from your own restless brain. You pass a town with one gas station and a sign that reads, "Free coffee for the broken-hearted." You laugh. It's probably not real, but you stop anyway. The coffee is burnt and watery, and perfect. As the trees thicken and the self-service vanishes, something in you quiets. The cabin is smaller than you pictured, but the fireplace works, the bed is lumpy in a forgiving way, and the lake is frozen solid, just like the photo from the travel guide. You've arrived in a postcard, and somehow you're the Stampy. You sleep like you haven't in weeks, no dreams, no memories clawing at the door. Just a blackout of thought. The morning sun through frosted windows feels like a blessing. Remember the Egyptian belief that Ra, the sun god, died every night and was reborn every morning. Historians still argue whether this was literal belief or poetic metaphor. Either way, it's oddly comforting now. You eat scrambled eggs on toast and read a book with yellowing pages. It's about explorers lost in the Arctic, and one of them wrote in his journal, "We are not dead yet. Therefore we live." Seems fair. Later you take a walk on the ice, boots crunching snow, cheeks burning in the wind. You realize you're not thinking about her, not even once. Instead, you're wondering if you'll fall through the ice, and whether you'd yell or just disappear with quiet dignity. You decide on yelling. You don't fall. You don't cry. You don't rewind. You simply exist. And for once, that's more than enough. The days begin to blur, in the gentlest way. You wake, you eat, you walk, you breathe. It's not dramatic. It's not cinematic. It's just peaceful. There's a rhythm here, like the slow tick of a grandfather clock no one's bothered to reset. You find yourself embracing the silence, even laughing at it. Imagine that, laughing alone, and not in a horror movie kind of way. You spend afternoons chopping wood, as if your survival depends on it, which technically it might. You channel all the anger, confusion and humiliation into each swing. The axe bites into the log. And for a second, it feels like justice. A deeply therapeutic justice with a splintery aftertaste. You write a letter to no one in particular. Just pen on paper, a real letter with your awkward cursive. It starts with, "Today I realized I've been more in love with the idea of being loved than with her." That part stings. But it feels true. Historians still debate whether Shakespeare's sonnets were all about one person or a collection of intense half-truths. Maybe that's how love works, equal parts fiction and memory. Maybe your own engagement was more screenplay than real life, Act 1, Act 2, and a very messy third act. One evening, you make a fire and toss your wedding invitation into it. You watch the edges curl and blacken, the fancy font vanishing like it was never meant to exist. You don't cheer, don't cry, you just watch. Fire has been symbolic for centuries. From cleansing rituals in ancient Greece to Viking funerals, you're not burning a bridge. You're lighting the path back to yourself. The wind picks up outside. The trees creak. And you, sitting there with a warm mug and a quieter heart, feel like you might finally be safe again. The quiet settles in a soft blanket, folding over you slowly. Each breath deepens, filling the spaces where anger and confusion used to live. You find solace in small routines, making your coffee just right, the aroma swirling around the kitchen like a warm hug. It's the little things that stitch your days together now, a contrast to the chaos that once was. You start noticing the subtle changes around you. The first crocus pushing through the thawed earth, the early morning birds singing their uncertain songs, the way the sunlight hits your window differently each day. It's almost like nature is reminding you that time keeps moving, that healing is a process, not a destination. Historians still argue whether ancient civilizations viewed time as linear or cyclical, but here in your quiet retreat, time feels both patient and forgiving. Some nights, you drift off to sleep with a sense of calm you haven't known in years, your mind gently replaying memories like an old movie on a faded screen. You chuckle softly to yourself, remembering that ridiculous moment when you tried to fix the leaky faucet and ended up flooding the bathroom. It's strange how humor sneaks back in, a sign that life isn't all lost. As you sink deeper into this new chapter, you realize you're not hiding or running away. You're rediscovering who you are beneath all the expectations and heartbreak. The world might keep spinning madly outside, but here, in your space, you're reclaiming your peace, one slow breath at a time.